welcome to Maverick Mindcast. My guest today is Franco in the Ambiance. He's a friend of mine. We hooked up because of our podcast. He does have a podcast called The Last Mancast, and we definitely share a lot of thoughts and outlooks on what's all going on in the world. Definitely has gone down the conspiratorial rabbit hole. So we were talking about our fearless leaders and politicians don't blink. Nothing to see here, people. And I'm like, why don't we just do an episode on this? Because I think it would make for a great conversation. So, hey, Franco, thanks.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So, yeah, I saw this post. So I'm going to share my screen. And those of you watching on video, obviously, you're not going to be able to see this on audio. If you want to check out on either YouTube, if it stays up on BitChute or on Rumble, you can check out the clip. If you haven't already seen it, somebody posted this on Instagram. You able to see my screen right now?
Yep.
And as you can see, Joe Biden, I think he went, I forget how long they said, over a minute without blinking while he was speaking. And this woman is, I believe, I forget who she is, Miriam Bowser or something. And what I find so interesting about this, is that this is millennial Republicans who posted this. So these are mainstream folks who I don't believe, if I'm not speaking out of turn, are into the conspiratorial side of reality and what all's going on right now politically. So sorry, go ahead, Franco.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it's not like it's been a well-known fact that over at least the last century, have you ever heard of Dr. Strangelove?
Yeah.
He was based on an actual doctor that was giving President Kennedy in the 1960s medication that basically speed would help him be more presidential, I guess. And I'm just like, that's the first thing that comes to mind when I see this video, other than what is blatantly obvious, that there's some sort of could be mental breakdown, could be hypnosis, possession, all that stuff.
It's really interesting though, and I'm loving that this is, I know also Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire Plus now also put the Biden clip up in his story. I don't have it anymore because it was in a story, but showing like, is this guy doesn't even look human anymore. So, and you can see in these comments, like, well, the poster put when the edible hits too hard, which is kind of funny. But here you have another, these people don't look human, ... democratic possession. And then another person put here, I don't think that's the real Biden. And then this person put, the robots haven't added the blink feature yet. So they're all hypnotized. I mean, it's pretty deep. And then I believe, let me see if I can toggle over to this. Yeah, Biden goes 40 seconds without blinking, raising health concerns. I don't know about that, because I like this little headline here. A normal human being blinks a normal human being, emphasis on that part, blinks once every 3 to 4 seconds. Now he went 40 seconds without blinking while he was speaking.
Yeah.
That's pretty bananas.
I don't ever think it's been more blatant that there is a deep state behind the scenes, like pulling strings. It's kind of like they're just throwing it in your face that this position, this powerful position, isn't real. This person's like hanging by a thread. And I think isn't there like a
oh look, deep fakes. There you go. And there's these little reptile emojis. We're being run by robots. It's like they're in a trance. They live. We just talked about that movie. They live. There we
Right,
go.
right.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what I thought when I saw it.
Roddy Piper.
Yeah, I mean, this is and then you sent me a clip where we have Nancy Pelosi. Let's see if I can get to the meat, stumbling over her words. Maybe we'll show this too. I don't know if we can, but
prices, great economic uncertainty, and self-inflicted damage of the Trump tariffs as they sell our country. But Republicans wrote a bill that abandons farmers of farming families. It weakens the farmers' safety net. It slashes hundreds of millions from rural development initiatives, cutting small businesses, loan guarantees.
I mean, in her case, I would say substances might play a role in this. Because
she's having that martini a
seriously,
little early in the day. Yeah.
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 Okay,
No,
she's not drunk, she's wasted. It's almost cruel to put her out in the public anymore. Day drinker, seriously, that woman is drunk. I mean, yeah, age limits for Congress. I mean, this is I don't know, it's just very telling. And if you guys have not heard of the movie They Live, I found this clip. Let's see. This is just a little, if we can show this even. I guess we can show a few seconds.
Yeah.
This guy stumbles upon these glasses, and when he looks at them, as you can see here, he sees what's really going on. Now, I just want to see if we can get to the part where he sees the actual people. But I feel like this is very emblematic of what this movie. Well, we won't see that message anymore. Marry and reproduce.
Right.
It's quite the opposite now. I just want to show if we can find one clip where he actually sees the They Lives. So yeah, this is a newsstand, and he's just seeing what really is going on, the subliminal, I guess, portion of what's going on with the glasses. And that's obviously versus without. I'm trying to find, where does he, the real meat of it is when he could see the people. There we go. I'll fast forward to that. Now see, he's looking at this guy. Oh, there's a big problem, buddy. Yeah, so just wanted to give a little preface there of like what we were talking about. But yeah, the movie They Live, I do believe Roddy Piper, the star, sorry, it's my cat, star said that it was a
Intercontinental
documentary.
champion. Yeah, that's.
Oh, look at you with your glasses on.
I don't know. I gotta see.
Do I look like a?
I want to
do
see
I look
things
like a
for what it is.
skeleton?
No. So the only skeletons were the people who weren't,
I know.
who were drinking
No,
the
I'm just
Kool-Aid,
kidding.
right?
Yeah,
I don't
and
remember. It's been a while since I saw that movie, but
I know, but at
classic.
the end, oh, I shouldn't be a spoiler alert, but basically it boiled down to technology.
Right.
It was how they were controlling people. Because at the end, he breaks that and everyone sees everything because it's the television station with the, what do they call those waves? The airwaves or whatever they're putting out, the frequencies they were putting out or not allowing people to see these non-human people. They were just seeing them as humans for who they really were.
Wow.
And they were like an elite group, because when they try to convert him over, because they were this like elite group, and they're like, oh, you can be with us, and he doesn't go for it. But
spoiler alert.
It's interesting. It's interesting to see more of the mainstream. Well, I don't want to say mainstream. I guess mainstream alternative outlets starting to pick up on these little nuances and strange things. I think we all see something's not right, but a lot of people didn't want to see it for a while, and now it's becoming like absolutely impossible not to see. It's so in our
Right.
face.
Yeah, I think I feel like my red pill journey has been a long incremental process that but I remember a friend of mine showed me that when I was like 20, and I didn't get it, but I couldn't stop watching, and then it did get me to like kind of think about like, you know, everything we're inundated with. And it's interesting how Shepard Fairey eventually like adopted the same obey like language on his art. He's the one who got commissioned to do President Obama with the hope underneath his in his
Interesting.
2008
That was
campaign.
effective.
Right. He's a good. I don't know what to make of Shepard Fairey. He's kind of like Elon Musk. Like I can't tell if he's like.
I don't know who that is. That doesn't mean
he's an
anything.
artist,
I don't know who that is.
really famous painter.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know whether he's like trying to wake people up or just kind of getting paid. But he's
Maybe a
got
little bit of both.
He's an interesting cat. Yeah, maybe a little bit of both, you know. Exactly.
Yeah, some people prefer to just stick their heads in the sand. Like maybe they kind of suspect something's going on, but they're like, "Oh, you're going to pay me a lot of money to do this. I'll do it." You know. So
Right.
it's hard to tell these days. It is, but I'm loving it. I'm feeling like this awakening is really starting to happen. I don't know if it'll happen in enough time, but it's definitely cool to see. Although they might not be taking it to the extent that we normally do, or the people that we watch and follow do, it's just so interesting. You know, I'm sure David Icke is just laughing all the way to the bank. He's like, I told y'all 30 years ago.
Right.
I think I want to do a show of just like, if I could find these passages in all the books of just all the stuff that my last solo cast, I talked about that, like just reading his books from like written 2009, talking about, and now like in 2020, when I was reading them, it's just like, whoa, mind blowing.
Yeah.
Alex Jones.
Yeah, a lot of people have like called the steps out. That's why like there's so many people who are not buying into it, because it's like, okay, well they several voices were coming out saying that they were going to, you know, for example, take away guns. Like that's always been on the agenda, and like take away weapons that can actually protect citizens from law-abiding citizens from government overreach. And that's exactly what we're seeing play out, you know. But I remember hearing like William Cooper talk about that. I remember hearing Alex Jones talk about it for years. And then when Sean Stone started doing his that one show, Buzzsaw, Enter the Buzzsaw.
Yeah.
He covered vaccinations back in like 2014. Like he was being very vocal about the fact that, like, you know, there was this is not something to just jump on board with. There's like ties to eugenicism and all the stuff you should be aware of before like just signing up for that kind of thing.
Absolutely. No, I totally, it's funny. It's just, we need to dig that stuff up more, because it's important that people get out of that like tinfoil hat, condescending mentality when it comes to conspiracy researchers, because they have contributed so much. Like their body of work is just crazy when you think about it. You know, they're not like sitting around clairvoyant predicting this stuff. They're digging up all the research,
like insatiably trying to find truth. And like, you know, you dig long enough on anything, it's not always gonna be pretty, but I'd rather like see the truth than to try to like you said, dig your head in the sand, right? I mean,
absolutely. And I think it's important to keep an open mind. I've always kept an open mind about the reptilian stuff. I'm like, okay, I can't prove it, but if it were to come to light that is something, I wouldn't be surprised, you know.
Right. Well, here's the thing about the mainstream narrative that people are given, like we just saw in that clip with Roddy Piper, versus like someone who's like a deeper thinker, whatever you like. I don't know how to frame it really. But for example, let's just talk about like Stonehenge. I was reading a National Geographic article on Stonehenge, and I was like, let me see what they have to say about it, because I know they're going to give you like, they're going to give you the cliff notes, and that they might mention like, oh, they have these festivals and certain druids show up or whatever, but they don't really like get into the like the meat and bones of it all, which is like, that is a like, it's not just this like monument that someone wanted to build. It like lines up with the with solar patterns and like the solstices and stuff like that. And how are you just going to take, how is that, what is that, just chance? You know what I mean? Like, how are you not going to like think about that, that there's a deeper uh there's a deeper nuance to all those topics, like
There's an
Stonehenge or
intentionality to these things. It's not
right,
just
exactly.
like, oh, we'll just
Yeah.
put these stones up here and whatever.
Right, but people like, you got
Yeah.
like hipsters going out there and just being like, oh, this is cool. Like, was it aliens and stuff? And the pyramids are the same thing. The pyramids align with
Yes.
Orion's belt, you know?
What about
That's
the Georgia Guidestones? I thought it was interesting that they recently got demolished.
right.
Although I feel that's more of the powers that be wanting
Covering up.
to, yeah, because they were starting to get attention, because obviously we're in a depopulation phase of civilization. So it's like, oh, let's tear that down. Because the first one that was torn down was the one in English. And then the rest, they just demolished it. But it's like, that's interesting. But yeah,
Right.
definitely. I agree with the pyramids 100%. I mean, as far as I understand, people are like, there's no way humans could have built these. I've never been there, so I don't have any perspective on that. But, you know, it's kind of like the
Yeah.
flat earth thing too. Like, people are constantly talking about the flat earth now, that's making a comeback.
Right.
And I'm like, you know, right now that's fairly inconsequential at this point. If it is flat, fine. I don't feel it is, but, you know, like, how are our lives going to change in any way, shape, or form with that?
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah,
and
there's
that's
some
like,
things you just
yeah.
got, there's some things I just kind of like shelf.
Yeah,
Like,
so it's
that's
like,
not
that's what the
gonna serve
reptilian
anything.
thing is for me. Because I know
Yeah.
I've interviewed a few people, brought up David Icke, and that's always like the thing that sticks in everyone's mind. Oh, the lizard guy, you know, and
I mean,
and I think Hirove had asked me that or something. He's like, do you think that's? And I'm like, you know, I keep all possibilities open. I put it on the back burner, and then, you know, if it were to come to light, I would not be surprised at all.
I think there's a spectrum too. Like, I think Sean Stone brought it up that like we do have a reptilian brain in us, that we all, and like, so it's not, you know, and in the Bible they mention the Nephilim, these like creatures that came and interbred with humans. I mean, this is like fascinating stuff. I mean, like, who knows? Like, it could be alien human hybrids, but people
As my cat pokes his
just
head in the shot.
oh yeah.
He's like, they're feline hybrids.
Cats are really, yeah, weren't they worshipped in Egypt?
And he's all black. He's a black cat. So I think they really like
Nice.
those. I'm not sure, but he loves to get in the camera. He's so funny. Crazy. Oh, that's my phone. Okay. Yeah. So what else were we talking about? We had one. Oh, well, interesting. We were just talking about Alex Jones.
Right.
And I know his trial has started, and I've been following some of it on band.video. It's pretty outrageous. Like, what he can't say he's innocent. He can't do anything. It
Right.
just seems like what, from his perspective, they're just trying to bankrupt him out of existence.
Right.
What's your take on that?
I totally yeah, I agree with that. I think the judges, I see like a definite slant towards just taking him out, you know, based on how the judge is like, seems in cahoots with the prosecutor, you know, or I think is it a prosecutor, or is
Yep.
I don't know if that.
Now, do you know the whole premise of that? Because this was my before any kind of conspiratorial interest hit. It was something about Sandy Hook. I'm guessing he's kind of going with most conspiracy theorists who think that these shootings are kind of orchestrated in order to elicit certain outcomes.
Yeah, he was raising questions and, doing his thing. He's never been trustful of the mainstream narrative. He wanted to call it a false flag, and who knows really, but the First Amendment does exist and people are entitled to speak their opinions. Like, just because you have a massive following doesn't take away your First Amendment right. And he was just being Alex Jones. Like, people didn't need to, but like the fact is, like, yeah, I mean, the counter argument to that is that the people were harassing the families, and and that's unfortunate. I don't have much to say about that. I think that that's where the police get involved, and those people are committing crimes. They should be not harassing anyone. I mean, that's obviously something for the civil servants to take care of. But
absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean, the whole thing that happened in Texas too, highly sketchy. Cops not going in for an hour, knowing there's an armed person with ill intentions going into the school, tasing parents, supposedly tasing parents who are trying to go in to get their kids. There's just so much out there right now, and it's a crazy world we're living in. But I don't know if you saw, I had posted on my Instagram something about my story about, it's just a great quote. Oh, okay. I'm wondering if, things are not getting worse. They're getting uncovered. We must hold each other tight and continue to pull back the veil. And
yeah,
I love that. And
absolutely.
actually, I think the graphic on that is like they live with the.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of hope. I mean, I've kind of, I don't know if you find it difficult to balance out all of this research and because recently I've felt more black-pilled than anything. Just
now,
like
what
kind
exactly
of
is black-pilled?
So black-pilled is when things start to look so bleak that you start to get like really depressed and like hopeless. It's hopeless basically. And so I kind of have to check myself. I have to, because I do kind of like go down the wormhole a lot, and I have like certain podcasts that I listen to, like the Propaganda Report. I'm wearing their little shout out there to.
Oh,
cool. But yeah, I don't know how you do it, but I think it's just as important to cut, like when you're covering these bleak issues or like the direction that things are going in, which obviously looks not good, less than ideal. It's good to cover stories like what's happening in Amsterdam, or in the Netherlands rather, where the farmers are selling direct to people, and they're starting food co-ops that are in resistance to the New World Order, basically.
yeah.
And we should see more of that. I mean, everywhere, just people's more community coming together and really like taking care of themselves. And like, there's no reason to be getting shrimp imported from China when you can get it from New Orleans, you know what I mean? Or like, we should start to.
Nolans. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
I agree 100%. And before we hit the record button, I was talking about this whole personal responsibility thing. And
right.
When you talk about now that I know what it means to be black-pilled, I do often, yes, very much so, choke on the black pill many times, because my concern is actually not really, I mean, somewhat, when I get caught into the matrix aspect of all of what's going on and like what's being proposed as our reality, I worry about politicians and Klaus Schwab's and, you know, the WHO and the WEF and all that. But when I really get uneasy, it's more not about those people, because to me, they're like villains in a movie, and they control the perceptual mediums. You know, they control the media, they control social media, they control all these basic outlets where we think we're going to understand our reality. But they're just shaping our reality. That's not actually reality. They're just always, of course, like if you're in a war and you control narratives, or you control any news or any way of getting updates out about the two sides, you're always going to make sure, even if it's not reality, that you portray one side, the side you want is winning. You know what I mean? So you're going to, even though there's two people, like when I went, like when I went to this conference that I went to in Tampa, it was so funny because like there was 5 people outside protesting for whatever reason. And it was like, you know, liberals or whatever. And it was just so funny because I'm like, I bet I didn't watch because I don't even have TV or network television or whatever, but I said to myself, I know the news will take this and make it look like there was probably like 1,000 people protesting, you know, because there were some media people there. So, you know, they'll show the same clips over and over again and use them for different stories. They'll do all sorts of stuff to make you think everyone's on board with this agenda that we're headed towards. But all I know is no matter who I talk to, strangers galore, and I get in a lot of conversation with strangers, we're all on the same page. I mean, this goes beyond politics. This is just like, this is wrong. This makes no sense. That makes no sense. So it's not reality, but they have the advantage of portraying reality and shaping and molding narrative. So I don't get terribly discouraged from that perspective. I get discouraged from the personal responsibility perspective of the masses.
Right.
That's what really bums me out, man. I mean, it really bums me out because we're just getting and I believe it's because of education and, you know, evolving technologies and things like that, where people just have relinquished any sense of personal responsibility to these institutions that have been completely infiltrated by these elite globalists, alleged, perhaps maybe hybrid people. So, you know, if we continue down this path of just doing whatever they say because it's easier, we are not going to win this. That's, you know, we have to keep our wits about us. We also have to think like, okay, well, how can I start growing my own food? Or how can we start food co-ops? Or how can we connect with each other? Farmers, whatever, you know, local providers of whatever it is that we need in order to turn our backs, turn away from these institutions. Because I personally think ignoring is way more powerful than fighting. Most of the time when you fight something that you're vehemently against, you become like that in the process of the fight.
Yeah.
You know,
and at this point, it is like
that.
it is definitely is like a David and Goliath scenario, you know.
Perceptually it is, though. That's what's so funny.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen, I know David showed this video once and I'm so glad he did, and I wish I could share it with the world, but it's called The Dot by Larkin Rose. It's on YouTube, but I'm sure it's probably on BitChute too. And it shows like there's billions of us.
Exactly.
And there's
and obviously
maybe 1,000 of these people.
Exactly. And what gives me hope is the fact that like they wouldn't have implemented this whole situation if if they didn't see that as a threat, if they didn't see like
Yeah.
the billions of people as a threat. So like, yeah, we have to navigate these waters now, but there's definitely silver linings out there, and you're right, personal responsibility is going to be key. Because I mean, if you really want to see what I feel like the deep state has established in the zeitgeist as far as like people's dispositions, just go to like libs of TikTok and you'll see like these like they're like, I don't want to be like mean or say anything, you know, too crazy, but they're kind of like, it's funny because it's just putting their actual content out there. It's all that's all they do is just put, people went out of their way to make these videos to say these things, and they're like these you know, very snowflakey people with their, you know, opinions, but they're exactly what they want because they're all about, you know,
Well, they don't
the
have
government.
opinions of their own.
Right, exactly.
They've
They're
been
totally brainwashed
spoon-fed these
and yeah,
ideologies, and they're literally
exactly.
just regurgitating them.
But they feel so much conviction behind them, and all of their arguments have holes in them. You could just it's like I was telling you before we started shooting, they're relying on rhetoric, they're relying on appeals to emotion to like get you to see their way, when like you could just point out facts and draw back to facts and point out like how, you know, that's not always easy obviously, but like that's important to have a, if you're going to have an argument, you should rely on objective fact. That's should go without saying.
Yeah.
But
There's no
but
such
when
thing
there's
in our
no, yeah,
world.
exactly, when there's no truth anymore, when when people can say my truth, and that's
The truth.
yeah, it's things are being skewered, the lines are everything's getting blurry, you know.
Definitely.
It-
And I think that's the intention, you
right.
know, like it's like unleashing these zombies out into the world. And then, you know, we're just
Mutants.
like, how do we deal with these people? Like, what do we do? Because they're so irrational
I think I
and
would
so
just
out
give
of
them a hug.
touch with
Sometimes, like,
reality.
I think the best thing you could do is just give them a
They
hug, you
don't
know, and not
shank
say
you
there's you.
while you're trying
Yeah, if they do.
to.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
I agree with
Definitely.
you, but it's like they're so, because, well, you know, I think there's a correlation with when you have that like brainwashing. When
Right.
somebody tries to give you an alternate take on reality, you just flip out. You can't like your circuits just overload and you can't handle it. So you have this like really strong reaction where you just like lash out and, you know, easily triggered. And, you know, it's just, and that's, you know, that's the other part of the personal responsibility. It's like, stop. I don't, you know, I don't have children, but it's just like parents, if you start to see this behavior taking root, just take your kids out of these institutions, you know, because that's where they're getting it from, you know. And then I feel like the reinforcement, because it seems to be more the younger generations and actually the hippie generations, I've noticed, are the same
Yeah.
way, which is funny because they were so anti-establishment
Right,
in the
right. But
60s.
there's a lot of evidence pointing to the fact that they got usurped by you know, infiltration basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that a lot of the musicians who were like, you know, very prominent had connections and ties to intelligence.
Totally. The Doors, Mamas
Exactly.
and the Papas. Who else? There was a bunch
It
more
was
actually. Was Zappa? I want to say Zappa.
I think Zappa was cool. I think he was sound. I don't think he was.
Okay. Well, I know definitely
Yeah.
Jim Morrison. I can't. There was a bunch actually.
Because he would speak out against corruption. As far as I mean, I don't know. I'm not like a huge Frank Zappa fan, but from what I've read and seen, he seemed all right.
Okay.
It could be wrong.
Yeah. Oh, even some of the Doors music, like The End, and just there's a few
Yeah.
other songs where you're like, wow, it's kind of prophetic. of where we
Yeah,
are
and
right
and
now.
like the fact that they were dishing out acid to like it was just on the street. It's kind of like I feel like acid in the 60s was what fentanyl is right now. Like it was something that was kind of just like allowed, like, you know what I mean? And they were doing the same time they were doing experiments like MK Ultra and trying to control people's minds with it. They were also just making sure it was being sold street side, and that, you know, all these people were just opening up those portals, you know, like to like whatever
Yeah, to like
whatever did.
expand your perceptual reality or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I
But
think that was a Trojan horse type thing. I don't know. I didn't grow up in that time, but
right.
it just seems like it didn't really help anything. It kind of, one, it definitely dumbed down the movement. Who could take
Yeah.
anyone seriously with the
When
bell
you're on
bottoms
acid.
and the look like you haven't showered in freaking 2 years and you're like, peace, and you're all high as a kite. You know, I do feel they did that to dumb down that anti-war movement and peace movement. So they kind of hijacked it, which they're very good at doing. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
They're very good at hijacking movements.
I mean, they're still doing it today with like you think back to the BLM movement and all the bricks that were sitting out there and ready to go, and the undercover police in the street in regular clothes.
Absolutely. And the J6 and all that. But
And there's an interesting book I want to check out by Tom O'Neill called Chaos, and it's about some of the MK Ultra experiments on Charles Manson and how he there was a point where like the police, the sheriffs or whatever who were supposed to arrest him in LA, they just put their hands up because it's ties to intelligence agency supposedly. And that book covers a lot of that ground where like, you know, they were totally monitoring him and making like, because it was all about thought control and how you can manipulate. He didn't murder he never killed anyone himself. He just had so much control over these other people that they went out and they killed Sharon Tate and all those other people.
Well, that's what's interesting about that one, because wasn't Sharon Tate pregnant with Roman Polanski's child?
So
and he did the movie
too.
Rosemary's Baby.
Right. Exactly.
Which I watched that movie. I never wanted to watch that movie because it creeped me out. But then once I went down the conspiratorial, you know, rabbit hole, and sorry, I know I keep bringing him up, but he's, you know, whatever. David I watched one of many of his presentations, and he brought up that movie when he was talking about the satanic slant of things and Aleister Crowley. So I was like, I'll watch the movie. Like, it was free. I saw it on probably YouTube. I don't know. I saw it somewhere for free. And I was like, oh my God, this is exactly like what he was talking about. Clearly there's some knowledge of that, what's going on. It's kind of like the same thing with Stanley Kubrick. And then he did the movie, because there's a whole, and I did get this from David Icke as well. You know, one of his, I don't know which book, but it might have been The Biggest Secret. I'm not sure. But how he was instrumental in staging, and I don't know if this is true or not either, but the moon landing. So supposedly Stanley Kubrick used technology to make it seem like we went to the moon. I don't know if it's true or not, whatever. But so then they owed him one. He said, I want to be able to make any movies, full creative control, whatever. So then he makes this movie, Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Which talks about the whole elites and their satanic rituals and sex.
That was his like magnum opus. It was his last film.
Then he died.
Right.
And
he died during production.
There was a lot of controversy about they wanted certain scenes taken out, and he refused. He was like, no, this was the deal we made.
Well, he was supposed to have final cut, and then he ended up passing away. And then I think Steven
before
Spielberg,
it was released.
Steven Spielberg ended up, if I'm not mistaken, I think, didn't he? So
That's interesting.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know, because honestly, I had no interest in the movie at the time it was released. I'm not really a Tom Cruise fan, and I'm not really a Nicole Kidman fan. and it looked, and honestly, I suffered through it because of what David had said. I said, well,
Oh,
let me
wow.
watch this movie. And I suffered through it. And I was like, like, I thought it was terrible, to be honest. I
Wow.
thought the acting was awful. But it did bring to light a lot of that occult aspect that we don't hear about with all the higher society. But it was the same with Rosemary's Baby. I mean,
Right.
all those people, they were living in a really nice place in New York City, and everybody, because I think it's at the end of Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, but he puts a letter from a Satanist who died and talks about how, like, they look just like you and me. They're lawyers, they're doctors, they're this. And even I think Oprah had a woman on who grew up in a satanic family and talked about all the ritual abuse and all that. And her parents were very well regarded people in society. You know, they look
Right.
like you, they talk like you, like, especially who she befriends, that older couple that she, and then the doctor's in on it. Everybody's in on it. You know, at the end, you come to, even her own husband gave her away, you know, to produce Satan's child. And it's just like so funny because it all kind of aligns with what they tell you. And then, you know, having had the privilege of interviewing Kathy O'Brien and reading her books, it's the same thing, you know? They live.
I don't know how, like it's not, I appreciate the fact that now more than ever, and I think that's why we're seeing such a strong pushback from you know, the powers that be, quote unquote, because the gloves really came off during this whole pandemic, and I was totally cool with not even like thinking about conspiracies for like a good decade there. And then when this happened, I was like, I was like, okay, well, should probably figure out what's going on here.
It's
You know,
impossible
and
not to.
yeah, exactly. And so I, you know, what also perked my ears up was Alex Jones incidentally being like completely banned from social media. That whole thing was like, it was like the beginning of this toppling of like dissenting voices and stuff. And then it eventually saw the whole virus thing hit in 2020 and whatnot. But yeah, back to your point, I think it's interesting that like people are being more vocal about it. And I find it interesting that like you don't really hear too many you know, because people undermine how spiritual the world is. I think that's also an issue. Like I was giving the comparison to Stonehenge and how like there's this mainstream safe definition of it being this, you know, oh, we can't really figure it out, but like there is information to figure out enough to know that it is a pagan ritual ground and like it has ties to astrology. That there's enough information out there to figure that out. And like for me to like when I was 14 going to Washington D.C. and to see all these like symbols on like the monuments and you know, that was enough to like also make me aware that like spirituality is ingrained in like our politics, our cities, and whether like good or evil, like it's out there, you know what I mean? And people to undermine it is a disservice as a whole. And that's what they want. They want you to like not be like just, oh, it's just a bunch of rocks, or oh, it's, you know, it's just an obelisk, and it has no significance. It's just there. That's all it is, and you know, move
Not
on with your
phallic
day.
at all. Nothing to see
Yeah,
here.
it's not 666 feet up in the sky. It's
Oh God, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
yeah, it's 555 feet, and then there's another 100 underneath it, or 100, yeah, or 101 or whatever.
11. Yeah. That's
111,
funny.
sorry.
I mean,
Math
well,
sucks.
that's interesting because that ties back to when I interviewed Wayne McCroy and the Demic of Pan and how he talks about all these symbols, you know, all the symbolism that we consciously do not pick up on, but subconsciously we have the ancestral memory. And so
Yeah.
subconsciously it speaks to us.
It's on the currency too. It's like you have the
Oh
Eye
yeah,
of Providence there too. Like,
I just got a flashback of Jon Stewart and Half Baked. See the guy hiding in the bush on the dollar bill? Well, that was a total diversion. That has nothing to do with our discussion, but
That's cool.
I love that. I love
I
that.
haven't
That's probably
seen
my
it. I gotta
favorite
check that
part
one
of it.
out.
You never see it. I'm actually
Uh-uh.
kind of jealous that you've never seen that movie because you get to see it for the first time. That movie
That's
is
awesome.
so funny. Oh my gosh. So that's a whole nother change of subject, guys. But
Right.
yeah, that's a great movie. It's a funny movie. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much going on now. It's a definitely, I think Alex Jones says all the time, it's such an exciting time to be alive. And I'm like, every day I grapple with that though. Like, so much of me's like, can we just go back to the way it used to be? Can we please just go back to the way it used to be? Because I just miss my freedom. It's not that I miss.
Right.
It's not that I don't mind knowing all this
you know
stuff,
what? That's what
but it's just
it's worth. It's definitely worth standing up for. You know.
Oh, absolutely.
Because at like worst case scenario, you know, depopulation, all that stuff, and it doesn't, you know, if nobody, like, imagine if everybody just went with the flow and no one stood up or tried to be like, you know, hey, let's use our critical thought here. Imagine.
I agree.
Like,
but I think I don't, those are the days that I'm feeling just very affected by everything that's going on. When I look around and there's still people wearing masks and there's, you know, still people wearing gloves and, you know, I get very, because like I said, I think for me, my black pill is humanity. I'm just so like, gosh, why are we like, what? It's like kind of like, yeah, it's, you know, I feel like the girl in Lord of the Rings, I don't know her name. Remember her uncle's under a spell and he's like old and rotting and just there's this guy whispering in his ear who looks kind of like a gargoyle who's controlling him the whole time and telling him what to do, and he's just he just is a ghost of a person. He's been put under a spell, and you're just like, she's sitting there seeing everything that he's saying and doing is so contrary to like who he is, his real self, and you're just like, wake up, no, don't do that, you know. And this guy's just sitting there and he's like relying on him for everything, and he's the one who put the spell on him, he's the one who's poisoned him. You know, it's just like, that's how I feel. I'm just like, wake up, you don't get it, you don't see what's coming. Like, we have to snap out of this. If we don't, like, if you think the stakes are bad right now, you've not seen anything yet.
Can you tell me how you have approached trying, like, do you have any, let me phrase it this way. Do you have any relatives who are just buying the mainstream narrative right now that you're trying to convince to think otherwise?
Not really, no. I have friends, not well, I do have some family members, but I don't I don't live in proximity to those members. So I don't see them or really talk to them much, and I'm not on social media, so I don't have a lot of interaction, so there's no tension there. But I will say, when things first popped off and I was red pilled, a lot of my friends weren't actually where I was living, but friends that I'd always kept in touch with, and friends that, you know, I'd just always consider my friends, were totally buying the narrative. And I wouldn't say that we got in an argument. You know, as I was waking up, I was kind of just expressing myself, curiosity to them, thinking, oh, they're going to want to know this information, right? Because we don't want to be slaves, we don't want to be locked down.
Exactly.
You know?
I mean,
and they actually were like, I don't know what you're talking about, like, don't you want to be a good person? That's what one said that to me, and he was like, I don't think I'm the right person for you to be talking to about this. Like, I love you, but I don't think you're the right person I'm the right person to discuss this with. And I was like, okay. And I wasn't trying to convert him or anything. I was just asking questions.
But the use of inversion is a key component to all of this. And it really, like, that it is disturbing how like there was that tilt to it. You were being a good person, you were saving grandma, you were like, and it was appealing to those sensibilities. And but like when you look at the facts, like for me, I had to come up with like a way, how do I frame this to just like point out a few facts that might like get through and get through the fog and the disorientation caused by whatever they're being inundated with on a regular basis through the media or social media and whatnot. And it was like the thing that finally kind of got through to like my brother, for example, was like all right, first of all, these vaccine companies are not held liable for any adverse effects, and they're trying to hide data of a study for 50 years. Those two things alone is enough to like raise a red flag. And he finally got it. And he's like, all right, well, that is sketchy. And, you know, why would you want to throw yourself at the mercy of that disadvantage? Like that was but it was very hard to like find a way because everybody was just like, no, we got to do it now. It was like rushed. It was so rushed and shoved down everybody's throat. And I came close to actually considering it. And you know, there's all these like job offers I've gotten that have fell through because I haven't, you know. They like, are you vaccinated? I was like, no. I'm like, all right, well, thanks for taking the time.
So
That's true.
I don't know how you do it. Trust me, I mean, well, California is had to haul ass out. I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I saw a sinking ship. I was like, I gotta go.
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah, that's true. I mean, they are taxing the fuck out of it.
It's so beautiful there, though. Like, I get it. Trust me, I miss it almost every day. I think about it because I loved it there so much. But I was like, I just didn't feel safe there. I did not feel safe. You know, with everything going on. And
right.
It just felt like so little control over your life. Like it would be like one day everything was open, the next day it was shut down, the next day was like whichever way the wind blew, you know, was the next thing, you know. And I just couldn't. And then just the crime and the lack of recognition of the crime, it's just like really creepy to me. But it's a gorgeous place. I mean, it really is.
It's definitely.
I almost feel like it's the Garden of Eden.
That's very like.
Because it looks so beautiful. Like it's so seductive. You go to out to New York, not New York.
Well, you're from Jersey though, so like it's like the weather. I think the weather is great for sure. Weather hands down is awesome here. But
everything, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. The people are beautiful. The landscape is beautiful. You know,
I feel the same about Jersey and Florida.
Really?
Yeah.
Jersey?
I mean, like there's a lot of there's a lot of great hiking. There's a lot of great nature. There's the, you know.
I know, but the winter.
As far as natural
beauty. Do the winters.
That's true.
Oh no, Florida's beautiful. You gotta get some good north faces. Yeah, not in the way that California is beautiful. It's different. Like it's very flat here. The beaches are better, or they're better in the sense that the sand is soft, the water's warm. They're not as beautiful at all because it's very like unspoiled, the beaches in California, I feel. You know, you have your caverns and you have coves and all this, you know, very just natural, but the water's freezing.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I miss the hills, the mountains, you know. I don't get that in Florida, but I just could not take the like group think.
Yeah.
I at least where I was surrounded by a lot of people like that, and it was just too bizarre for me. Like I literally had people where I'm outside walking my dog, I'm not wearing a mask outside, and they are masked, and they would rather jump instead of just walking around. There's plenty of room. They'd rather jump into the middle of the street with their mask on to avoid me. Like, this is just not normal behavior. Like, I'd rather risk getting hit by a car than being near a person
it's the
who's
most
not wearing
ridiculous
a mask outside.
It's the most ridiculous at times.
I mean, watching people go into the bathroom, Like, oh, you go into the restaurant, you have to put your mask on, then you sit down, and then you can take your mask off. And then if you have to go to the bathroom, you put your mask back on, walk. I mean,
Right.
it's just like, I don't know. It's just, even when I went to
and
visit
I
my
mean, like, really,
family,
it's
it
like
was like that too.
the mortality factor on paper has always been consistently a little bit higher than the flu, right? So these people
Yeah.
were just fearful based on like
What
no
they did
facts,
what they were
just what
being
they
told
were.
to do.
And we already talked about how it's important for the narrative to be controlled by people,
It's
pulling the strings
fear.
on them.
It's just fear. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, somebody told me to do this, even though nothing in reality looks like this. They're telling me we're in a pandemic, so we must be in a pandemic. I gotta do what I gotta do. And it was just.
I remember I moved to me and Monse moved to Miami South Beach for a few months in 2020, and it was like a breath of fresh air because like we went into a restaurant and nobody was wearing a mask, and this was like deep into the like it was like what, October maybe 2020. So like these Floridians were just they were making us feel bad for wearing the masks, and it was very refreshing, and I'll always remember that. And it, yeah, it's a great state. I
Love it here. I really can't complain. I love our governor. I love it here. So
yeah.
And I'm not really into politics like that, with favoring a party or whatever.
Right.
But I really love our governor. So I love his courage. He speaks out on a lot of things that most people do not have the guts to do.
It's going to be interesting to see if Donald Trump, concedes to him running, or if they go at it and vie
Do you
for
think
it.
he's
I
gonna
think
run?
I've heard that he's considering it.
Well, I know Alex
It's
Jones
just a rumor
and
mill.
Robert Barnes have said that it's going to be a Trump DeSantis ticket.
Oh wow,
They have that all over
interesting.
InfoWars. It's Trump president, DeSantis VP.
And the Democrats are gonna have to figure it out. I heard Gavin Newsom is the Governor Hairgel. He's running for the Democratic ticket.
It can't be. Like, he was recalled. He really was. Come on.
Yeah, he shouldn't.
Nobody likes that guy or believes him. Anyway, he just gives me.
He's an American Trudeau is basically what he is. He's
He's not as good looking as Trudeau. He doesn't have those Castro looks like Trudeau does.
Yeah,
he's not as dashing. I really do think that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But when you look at those pictures, man, it's almost like impossible to dispute. He's tall. Castro's tall. I mean,
so he doesn't look anything like the original Trudeau.
His dad?
Yeah.
I don't know. Let me see. Well, there's a lot. All I'll say is there's a ton of pictures of Justin Trudeau's mom hanging out with Castro. There is. I mean, there just is. It's out there. It's kind of bananas, but it's out there. They were very good friends. Yeah, I mean,
I'm gonna have to look into it. That's one conspiracy I haven't really touched yet. So.
I mean, it's very
I know
compelling.
He seems like it's a shame what he's doing up there. It really is, but it's good to see people standing up for themselves and for our future. So
here, I'll show my screen.
Like you, and I hope you continue to do very great on your show here, and I'm happy to have joined. And
awesome. Thanks for coming on. I just want to share this real quick and then we'll wrap it up. But I mean, you look at this right here.
But
that's his real father.
Wow.
I mean, I'm sorry, that's his supposed father. Now look at that one. That's actually Castro holding Justin Trudeau with his parents there. When I say they were like, we're really, look, there's another one.
Wow, that's crazy. He does look a lot like him. That's
I mean, beyond. And you can see his father was very short, actually. He wasn't that tall. And Justin Trudeau's like really tall. Like
oh yeah.
you could
You can
here
see him
he's
towering over him right
his
there.
dad. I mean, maybe a little bit. He looks a little bit like his dad, but oh, here's a good one. These are all three. I mean, yeah, but I don't know. He's got the same exact nose, like to a
They kind of
T.
like all three of them look like they have that nose and that big.
That's his mom.
I don't know what
I
we
don't
gotta have
know.
we should have a paternity test. Put him on the Maori show. Maury Povich.
I know it. You are the yeah, you see. I mean, look at that one. You can really see it when he doesn't have the facial hair. Castro.
I've never seen Castro without facial hair. Those young pics.
Well, they just showed it. Look at that. That's him.
Wow.
Facial
I
hair.
gotta say, that's
It's very compelling, isn't
food for
it?
thought. Food for thought. Yeah.
Oh, look at this one. They split screened it.
Either way, like you gotta give him credit for
Crazy.
like making this pop off as a thing. Like whoever's like
Yeah.
made this go viral and stuff. This is funny.
Well, I always say there's always a little element of truth to all of this stuff. You know, like when something comes out, it's not coincidental. It's because, you know, there's something to it. Where there's, what does it say? Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's
100%.
something that's interesting. But thank you for joining. It was really fun talking to you.
You too.
And
Thanks for having me.
vibing and just kind of going down that rabbit hole, a little less structure, a little more just free flowing.
Yeah, it was loose. It was loose. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I just was wondering, where can people find you? You want to talk a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah, I do a podcast. It's not kind of just we cover a broad range of topics, but it's mainly centered on the guest. It's not necessarily conspiratorial all the time, but it does like kind of drift there based on what we have conversations about. I'm just very fascinated with. I've always been into like cryptozoology and the esoteric, I guess you could say, and spirituality and music and art. Here's the thing. I don't know how people could get into art and like all these like, whether you're a filmmaker or a writer or anything, how you can try to seek truth and not come across those topics. Like you just don't want to see it at that point. You're choosing to like
exactly
what you want to see or not. But it's all fascinating and life is beautiful and I'm just.
And it's the last Mancast, right?
The last Mancast, that's right. Sorry.
And people can find it. People can find it where? No, it's all good.
It's on. Well, I'm on all major social platforms, and I'm also on Patreon. And I tried to get on Rockfin. You're on Rockfin, right?
No, I'm not. I looked at that and I was like, I don't understand this. Okay, moving on.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, which one did you mention earlier? You mentioned something with an R.
I'm on Rumble.
Rumble. Okay, cool. Nice.
BitChute and Icky Poo YouTube. And then obviously all the audio podcasts like, Apple and Spotify and Google. And
which you're not a fan of, I remember you mentioning, right?
What, Spotify?
No, you're not a fan of audio only podcasts? You're like,
I don't know. I'm very into like visual. Like I want to see the people, I want to see the reactions, but I do listen to some audio podcasts, but I always knew if I started a podcast, I always want to have the video component to it because I just like, and sometimes I'll just listen to it because I'm running around my house doing whatever. So I'm not even watching a lot of it, but some of it I like to watch. And I think it's good to have both options. Sometimes you just want to get in your car, listen to the audio, but I like having the option. I don't think all podcasters should have video, if they don't want it, but I like having the option because there's some interviews that I've seen where I'm just like, oh, damn, like, you see how they squirm? Did you see how this, it's just interesting to see the physical aspect of the conversation as it's kind of happening.
No,
So,
definitely.
I do like offering that video option for that reason.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think it's advantageous for sure. Like,
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
for better or for worse, some people, and also comments. I like being able for people to leave comments. And I don't believe you can do that with the audio component.
right, it's just kind of there for,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
just a
they,
one-way
wherever
conversation.
they see it
So
at
I
their
like
leisure.
to have that as well. I love hearing people's, which by the way, if you guys have comments that you want to, let us know what you think about the conversation, or you want to add to the conversation, feel free to do that. If you like what you heard and you want to subscribe and get more of it, subscribe, hit the like button. We love that too. We like to get some love. So, but yeah, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Franco, for coming.
That was an honor. Thank you.
I'm sure
I
we'll have many more conversations.
I feel like I made it now. Kathy O'Brien, Sean Stone, James Corbett. It's awesome.
You too, guys.
Let's keep Maverick Mindcast going. Hit that
I
sub button.
know, guys. Come on. Let's do this. We're doing this. Hit the like button, subscribe.
Let's share and share. Yeah, sharing's the most important, I think, out of all that.
Sharing is
just getting the word
caring.
out. Sharing is caring. Yep.
That's right. That's right. Because we want to get this information out. And we want to, just through conversations, just through simple discourse, we can change a lot of people's perspectives just by hearing different things,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
I'll put your links in the description as well. And
Awesome.
that's all right.